Welcome back, everybody, to the Myrna Method live stream, where I try to bring really good nutrition information for you so that you can use it. It's applicable, not just talking points, because I hate talking points. I hate when people pick up something and it's just bullet down the line. And recently, I had a patient come see me, and this happens a lot, by the way, and there's a boatload of supplements. They literally dump all these supplements on my desk, and like, oh, I'm taking this one and this one. And I'm thinking, well, what are all these supplements? Do you even know what they do? Half the time, they don't even know why they're taking them because they listen to somebody else give them a talking point, a bullet point. Take this because it'll help with nerves. Oh, this helps with brain development. Oh, this one's going to help. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they're spending $300, $400, $500 on supplements. And it's not like there's any great outcome, right? It's kind of like, okay, well, if I take this, am I going to see something great that's going to happen because I'm taking it? The answer to that is no. And it's a billion-dollar business. So what I wanted to do on this video is talk about a vitamin that everybody's talking about. And I even see people are saying, oh, did you hear about NAD? Did you hear about this? It does all these amazing things. And I wanted to show you the pathology of it. Because you know what? If you're just getting talking points from anybody, then everybody's one big talking head. I think when you come to the table and you're going to claim to be an expert, which, by the way, I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I just go bird dog it, right? I just go try to figure out what the path is. Give me the science on it. And if there's any legitimacy to what you're saying, then wow, I'm going to be on it. But half the time when you actually get the science, and by the way, the science means that you're actually looking at the pathology. We got to quit thinking that because we're reading a study or because somebody that's wearing a coat with their name and it's got some kind of initial on it, that there's some big expert and they're going to know everything. We got to be able to ask our clinicians and these experts some really good questions. We have to set our own criteria because we're just going to be one big world of talking points. So to me, it's all about bringing to the table, where does it go? What does it do? Who does it talk to? Show me the path. That's why I call it the pathology. And when you can see the pathology of whatever it is you're talking about, then possibly the talking points or the bullet points or whatever you're bringing to the table, which I just call it good marketing. And actually, you even see clinicians recommend, medium chain fats. And they're talking about it and talking points. Literally, they're reading it off a brochure. Honestly, it's disgusting. And I don't even know if they know where it works or what it does. So what I want to talk to, Samantha, if you'll switch it over on the screen. And I really want to also make sure that as I go over this, I want to give consideration, because a few people had told me this. Hey, we don't always want to look at your PowerPoints. We don't just learn by looking, which, by the way, is kind of the way I do it. So I want to really be sensitive to that. So I'm going to try a lot harder to describe it so that if you are somebody that's multitasking, which I do all the time, so I should have thought this would be a normal thing, right? That you can listen to my presentations and not have to look at the screen, okay? So I'm going to try a lot harder. You can let me know if I'm doing a good job of that, because feedback's always important. So I start out by saying the vitamin NAD. I literally had somebody come to me and they didn't call it NAD. It was some other marketing name the company had given. I didn't even know what they were talking about. Like, what? What's in it? And then I look and it's NAD. And they don't even know what NAD is. And it's this hidden compound in food, and it controls the metabolism, and NAD by itself reverses aging. My God, you read the marketing information or you listen to these vitamin reps, honest to God, you're going to buy it. And so I want to sort of lay it all out for you, because I think NAD is a really good one. And what is NAD? So sometimes you'll see it as nicotinic acid, nicotinamide ribose, inositol, hexatine niconate. It's basically, guys, vitamin B3. It's niacin, okay? And B vitamins are super important. But the key is, do we need to take boatloads of these? I mean, where is the threshold, Myrna? And should I be taking like 10,000% of a vitamin? And that's what I want to just put to bed, because there are some times that taking 10 times the amount of vitamin you need has a therapeutic reason for it, but then it's got its own pathology. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is as we go through some of these and we look at like niacin B3, let's start there. It has different chemical forms that affect the body differently. So it's like niacin is this B3 vitamin that can actually sort of break down into different types of chemical components of that. And that's the beauty. You get niacin, and it can break down to nicotinic acid, it can break down to nicotinamide, and all these different chemical components just have an extra chemical attached to it, an extra sugar molecule, an extra carbon. It has a little extra chemical attachment that sort of changes its direction and what it's supposed to do. But what you need to understand, it is coming from one place called niacin. And depending on how that vitamin goes in and where it's instructed to go, it might chemically change a little bit along the way. So if niacin changes to the chemical nicotinic acid, it's going to do a little different job than if it's nicotinamide, okay? So depending on what little sugar molecule gets added or carbon molecule, it sort of makes it pertain to some other area. But bottom line, I'm going to go back to the idea that, hey, I'm starting out with B3. Like, Myrna, just give me the nuts and bolts. You got it, baby. Take vitamin B, take niacin, and you're going to be fine. And do I have to take mega doses? Not unless you're using it for some kind of therapeutic reason. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. Because niacin is one of those vitamins that they are using for therapeutic reasons. Now, niacin does a lot of really cool stuff, and I think that we should have another podcast just on some of the things that niacin does in regards to aging chemically. It's a different pathology. I think it's super interesting. But at the end of the day, how much do I need to get the job done? And at the end of the day, niacin, and we'll just get right to that right away, it's about 18 milligrams a day, okay, to get the job done. And I would say if you go anywhere from 18 milligrams to 50 milligrams, you're pretty much covered. Because there could be some people that have gut issues. Maybe they don't absorb as well. Maybe you're just a little older. Okay, so maybe your absorption of it isn't that great. But do I need, 1,000 mgs of it? Will it make any difference in aging? And from a science standpoint, in certain pathologies, no, it doesn't. Unless you're using specifically niacin for a therapy as a drug. So now we have to understand that vitamins do their vitamin deal. Vitamins come into the body and they go, okay, I'm a vitamin and I can break down different ways and do different things. Oh, do you need me over here to work with the DNA? Do you need me over here? Bottom line is that niacin is one of those vitamins that can do that. So when we're looking at niacin and we're thinking of it as a therapy, now I'm looking at it as a drug, how it acts like a drug, how it can reduce disease, improve metabolism, all these things it does. But when does it act like a drug? And when it acts like a drug is when we're taking it in mega doses. Because if you're just getting niacin, like niacin's supposed to be taken, then it's niacin. And it's going to do what niacin does, which means it's going to slow aging, reduce disease, and improve your metabolism, depending on what compound it changes into and where it goes and what it does. But if we're going to talk about a vitamin as a drug, which I see a lot of people who are taking megadoses of biotin, megadoses of niacin, megadoses of all these vitamins, because now they're taking it out of the context of it being a vitamin doing its vitamin job, and now we're putting it into a pharmacological kind of agent. It's more becoming a drug. So with niacin, it has been very instrumental in lowering the lipid profile, which means your cholesterols. And when I look at this one study, which I'm going to read from the study, it talks about the nicotinic acid. That's one of the chemical composites of niacin. It's a wonder drug because it lowers bad cholesterols and it increases good cholesterols. Reading from this study, and this study is October 2013, so this has been a while, right? So we've known about this for a while. It's the effect of nicotinic acid, niacin, vitamin B3, on the lipid profile of diabetic and non-diabetic rats. Okay, so we're using little rats to get the job done. But let's see what happens in this study. What are they claiming? Niacin, or nicotinic acid, because when you're thinking of niacin, it can go with the different directions. So yeah, this is the one direction, can serve as a wonder drug for correcting lipid metabolic disorders. Besides all the other functions it does as a B vitamin. It's a water-soluble vitamin and has since long been used to treat lipid, which means fat. In this case, they're talking about cholesterol disorders, which if left untreated, in other words, you let your cholesterol go off the charts, it's going to result in atherosclerosis, which means you're going to get plaque in your arteries. You're going to have cardiovascular problems, probably lead to a heart attack and stroke if you don't take care of it. So obviously they're thinking, wow, how is niacin going to make a difference? Well, in mega doses, and I'm talking about 1,500 milligrams. Remember, I said you need 18 milligrams. 1,500 milligrams or 2,000 milligrams is the amount they're talking about here. So you're going way beyond just little old niacin doing its niacin job. It is now serving as a drug, and rightly so, because it has remarkable, according to this study, remarkable HDL cholesterol raising capacity. And why is that important? Because HDL is the good cholesterol, and the HDL good cholesterols go around and take out the bad cholesterols. They literally scoop them up and get rid of them. So good cholesterols are a good thing to have, and bad cholesterols are not, because those are the ones that cause the plaque and lead to heart disease. And what they're saying is when you take niacin in this drug level, that you can actually increase the HDLs, and it's going to lower the bad cholesterols. It's going to actually lower the LDLs as well as the triglycerides and all these fatty acids that are attached to this. Because we know fatty acids are what are contributing to these LDL cholesterols and high triglycerides, because we talk about that on almost all my YouTube videos. Why is that? Because I'm a registered dietitian and my job ought to be to reverse obesity and obesity-related diseases, and that's a big one. So when you look at niacin, this innocent little vitamin that now we're putting it on a drug level, this thing has really some very promising results here. And it talks about in the conclusion in this study that nicotinic acid is the most effective agent available. That's a strong word, in increasing HDL cholesterol and lowering triglycerides and LDL cholesterols. It actually helps with hypercholesteremia. That means your cholesterols are off the charts. And also with diabetes. And this is going to be something that any doctor is going to jump aboard because, my God, it's a vitamin. So people will think of a vitamin and they don't think of it as a drug. Well, if I'm taking mega doses of a vitamin, that ought to be okay, right? And I'm sitting here going, not so right. Because you need to ask some really important questions. This is just a talking point. This study is just stating some facts. And of course, some people would just run with the study and say, oh, look at all these studies. And I'm like, well, I want to do more than run with the study. I want to understand exactly the pathology. So here it is. This is the pathology. we got to talk about the evolution of a fat cell first. Because when they say that this niacin, this nicotinic acid, can actually decrease LDLs, can decrease the bad cholesterols, what they're referring to is it's going to decrease fatty acids because these LDLs are excess fatty acids in circulation. And we already know excess fatty acids in circulations, or maybe you don't know, maybe you need to watch some of my YouTube videos. I talk about excess fatty acids being one of the main contributors for type 2 diabetes. It's also a main contributor for cardiovascular disease. So how does this magic vitamin rock our world? Well, here it is. If you look at the evolution of a fat cell, when that fat cell becomes enlarged, now why would a fat cell become enlarged? Duh. Yeah, because you're enlarging it because you're eating too much. So the fat cell takes in all the excess food that you're not burning, and that fat cell becomes enlarged. And you get more of those fat cells enlarged, and they recruit immune cells. And the immune cells they recruit are called macrophages, and they also recruit a few other ones that aren't so good, but these immune cells create inflammation. Why is that? It's the evolution of a fat cell. As a fat cell gets larger and it implodes, it releases all these fatty acids. That's just what fat cells do. Get over it. And that means when you have a lot of fat cells, because you're just too fat, then you're going to have a lot of inflammation, and you're going to have all these macrophages running over to the site trying to take care of all this mess you got going on, but you're releasing excess fatty acids into circulation. And so what niacin does, or nicotinic acid, it attaches to these immune cells that are all run into that fat cell. It literally attaches to the immune cells, and it decreases the fatty acid release into circulation, because part of the job of these immune cells are to cause this fatty acid whole thing from just, I guess, getting worse to some extent, but it's an immune response, and nicotinic acid literally helps reduce that response, and it goes through the immune cell to do it. That's why you need mega doses, because you need a lot of this nicotinic acid to serve as this purpose. Now, niacin has a lot of other pathways, and I really was going to go through all of them tonight, and then I realized, okay, that's not really smart, because then nobody's going to get the main point. And that was one of the things people said. Don't do that, Myrna. Just run down one rabbit hole. And I'm going to do that, because I think that's the best way to serve you, is to leave you with one clear idea, and then next week we can actually look at niacin and its pathology for aging, because it's a lot different than the one I'm explaining now. Okay, this is nicotinic, this is niacin, nicotinic acid, a form of niacin, serving as a drug. So 18 milligrams ain't gonna cut it. Neither will 100 milligrams cut it, because it needs to be a lot more to get in there and get to all those macrophages and all these fat cells to really make a difference as a drug. So when I look at more studies, so now that I explained the pathology, right, let's look at some more studies, because I don't know if you can just go studies to studies without giving somebody the science. So now you have that picture in your head, and if you're listening, hopefully you still have that picture in your head. So if I look at this study, it talks about the liver that throws back the HDL carriers in circulation. So the HDL are the good cholesterols. Well, these HDL good cholesterols, they have to ride on a bus. Well, it's not really a bus, it's a protein carrier. I think of it as kind of a bus, because these fats have to have carriers to go all around the body, and they use protein. They hop on the backs of protein and they run around. So we've got this good cholesterol fat sitting on the back of this protein carrier. And what happens is the liver literally takes in the HDL, good cholesterol, and throws that doggone bus back out in the bloodstream. Says, you go out there, protein, and get some more of these guys, get rolling. And so what happens is you get more of these good cholesterols running on these buses or these carriers. And in this study, it talks about the HDL binds to more of these proteins, and this actually helps clear, again, the bad cholesterols. So the pathology with this, and what this study clearly discusses, and this study again is coming from the one I was referring to with the effects of the nicotinic acid on the lipid profile of diabetic and non-diabetic rats. And in this study, they basically talk about that it's shown that nicotinic acid does not increase the synthesis of more good cholesterols, but inhibits the selective uptake and degradation of the APOA, which is the carrier, by the liver. In the process, cholesterol esters in the HDL particle is taken up by the liver, and the APO, or the APO protein, which is that bus ride I was talking about, that protein carrier, is thrown back into circulation, which is then the carrier of more HDL particles. In other words, what can happen with the nicotinic acid, it can trigger the liver, okay, to create a more advantageous environment.
Stop for a second. I need to fix this thing.
Okay.
It froze for a second.
It froze? Are we unfrozen?
Camera, just your camera.
Oh, are we unfrozen?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I can't tell when I freeze. Sorry about the freeze.
I'm keeping track.
Okay. Phew. Okay, I got someone keeping track because I wouldn't know. All right, so we talk more about decreased fatty acids in circulation. So the HDL carriers pick up more HDLs. They help reverse it. So the main thing with this niacin in a really therapeutic level is it decreases fatty acids because it attaches to those macrophages, those immune cells on the fat cells. That's why you need a lot of them. So then it doesn't allow these fatty acids to be released into circulation as easily as they normally would. So that means you reduce your fatty acid circulation, which means you're going to reduce the LDL. And then the other thing niacin does, it actually kicks the liver into action to be able to not synthesize more HDL, but throw those carriers back into the bloodstream to be able to pick up more protein, to pick up these bad cholesterols. It actually sends out more bus rides so these HDLs can do their job more efficiently. And then the other thing it does, which I'm really going to talk about because this is the one that really convinces most physicians to jump aboard, is because it decreases a bad cholesterol called lipo(a). And a lot of people aren't familiar with lipo(a) because it's a gene variant. So you either have the gene variant or you don't. So a lot of doctors don't even test for it. But Oprah Winfrey's trainer, who's beautiful, does the Biggest Loser contest. The guy's, I mean, let's face it, he's a good-looking guy, super fit. He's got a six-pack, 10 over. And he literally has a heart attack at age 52. Now, his lipid panel was fine. Why did he have a heart attack? Because he had the lipo(a). And everybody can get their doctor to do this test. I mean, it's a well-known test by most physicians, but it's a hidden, and I say hidden, bad cholesterol because you don't know you have it. So you go to your doctor, you think you're doing pretty good, and doggone it if you don't have a gene that's really telling you you're not doing so good. It's almost an independent biomarker of a bad cholesterol we didn't even know existed. Now we know it does. So LDL is not just the only bad cholesterol. There's a few others. Well, this is one that's basically based on your genes. And why am I telling you this in regards to niacin? Because Lipo is not affected by statins. You cannot reduce the amount of lipo because remember, you have the gene or you don't. And if you have the gene, you can have a lot of them. That's just the way the card rolls sometimes. You could have the gene variant for lipo maybe not have as many, but it's not a good cholesterol to have. In fact, they call it the widow maker for a reason. A lot of people don't even know they have it. But what's interesting with this and niacin is those that have the lipo okay, and they're taking niacin at therapeutic levels, we are seeing 30% decrease in that lipo and statins can't touch that baby. Okay, so we have a situation that statins don't really have any effect on us. So you have a bad cholesterol that we can't even use statins to do it, but we find that we can use niacin and the data is showing that it actually lowers it. I just want to share a little caveat with you guys. I just feel like I have to. Diet does the same thing. Yeah. I can put people on a balanced diet. I can really watch those fats, bring those macronutrients in the right levels they should be, and we can get the same results. In fact, the Cleveland Clinic says nothing outdoes diet. I just want to throw that little thing in there. But let's go back to niacin. So this is a big reason why, okay, a lot of doctors that see the lipo and they see this elevated lipid panel and their patient can't lose weight. They can't seem to go on that diet, which is why I was put on planet Earth, I'm pretty sure. Because my job is to help people understand that you can reverse through diet type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. The problem is people are not shown how to eat, and that's the honest to God truth. And they're not really showing them pathology. I'm trying my hardest to do that. I have a little membership program you can be part of because there is a science on how to eat to get rid of all this hog mess. And you have to understand the science behind how it works. I really believe that. Because how can you take information and just run on talking points without really wanting to get down to the nitty gritty and figure out why and how things work? Because either the talking points are going to make sense or they're not. So in regards to niacin, when a doctor sees a patient with elevated LDL, their triglycerides are high, they're probably diabetic, and now they have the lipo gene variant. So they're getting them on statins and they know, well, we can probably get some of that down with statins. They've tried the diet because you know the story. They go in to see their doctor. Doctor says, you really need to lose weight. And they're like, I've tried that. Been there, done that. I do intermittent fasting. I do the keto diet. They do every diet on the planet. So the doctor's trying to save lives. You can't blame the doc. And he's going to shoot you up with drugs because at least he knows we're going to get some pharmacological solutions because you can't seem to lose weight, right? Well, the problem is they don't know how to lose weight. That's another issue. But in regards to niacin, it seems like a wonder drug. And a lot of people are really very receptive to it because they're like, wow, I'd rather take a vitamin than I would a statin. And so I can understand that. But then you got to say to yourself, but you're not really taking a vitamin, okay? Let's really get this clear. When you're taking vitamin and mega doses, you got to have a little common sense, all right? It's no longer a vitamin because it's not just doing its vitamin daily thing. You're really taking a drug because you've passed the vitamin thing and you're going into another area. Because niacin doesn't just attach all over macrophages on fat cells, because there certainly wouldn't even be enough even if you took 50 milligrams to make that therapeutic change. That only happens when you're doing boatloads, megadoses. And that's the point I'm trying to make. How many other megadosing on vitamins do we have other sideline projects going on that people don't even know about? Which is why I'm always leery. And I'm like, don't give me the talking point. Please give me the science. Break it down for me. Let me see where it goes, what it does. And then let's look at it from a common sense standpoint. So I feel that's super important, but then we're going to look at the flip side. And on this, I'm going to look at these two studies here. This one is 2014. It says dramatic lowering of very high lipo(a) in response to niacin. So this was out 10 years ago, right? And this abstract talks about, we describe a patient with remarkable elevated lipo(a) without any other lipid abnormalities. What does that mean? That means this guy has a gene of a lot of lipo(a)s, and doggone it, all his other lipids are fine. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying he's going to his doctor, probably like Oprah's trainer did, and the doctor's giving him a high five, baby, you're doing great, and they haven't tested him for this gene to know he could be a widowmaker. Literally. He could be sitting on a mass murderer because he has the lipo(a). And it talks about, a lot of times, look, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people are on statins and they say, well, I'm on statins and my cholesterol's low. And I look at them, I say, listen, dude, I hate to break the news to you, okay? A lot of my patients are on statins and they've been on statins for a decade and they're having heart attacks. Because statins, just because you're getting a drug and you see these low cholesterols and you think you're fine, well, you don't have all the science, I hate to tell you. Okay, and this study here, which they knew about it 10 years ago, did you know about it till tonight? Maybe, maybe not. But it says right there that they're describing a patient that has elevated lipo(a) and they don't have any other cholesterol abnormalities. After the myocardial infarction, which means after the heart attack, she was treated with a combination of extended release niacin and a statin. And I think what you need to get from that little teeny sentence, 2 sentences, is we're describing a patient that had markedly, a lot, I guess, they don't tell me how much, elevated lipo(a) without any other lipid, anything other in their cholesterol panel that was abnormal. Everything else was fine, which is why it can be an independent marker. And then right after that, this ought to hit you in the head. After her heart attack, what? Yeah. After her heart attack, then she was treated. And that's usually how it works, people. Because prevention's not really a thing. After the heart attack, they treated her with extended niacin and statins. And there was an 88% reduction. That's a lot of lipo(a). That's what it says right here. An 88% reduction in lipo(a) was observed during the 5 years of treatment, which is much better response than usually reported. She had a lot of really good results with that. But then I always have to ask, did anybody ask about her diet? Maybe it was, a better response because maybe she did a really good diet with it. Well, we don't know because they don't give diet much attention. So I think that's 3 sentences there. And those 3 sentences to me are power-packed. Says a lot right there. Didn't know I had it. All my other lipid panels normal. Oh, gee, look at that. Had a heart attack, then you treated me with it. Boy, dropped it down 88%. Then another study below that talks about the therapeutic lowering of lipo(a). Remember, that's the bad cholesterol nobody knows about that has to do with the gene. It talks about, finally, there is niacin, which can lower lipo(a) by 30%. Wow. In addition, it has an effect on the LDL cholesterol and HDL cholesterols. Of course it does. I just went over that with you. Niacin has been shown to downregulate the transcriptional activity of lipo(a) promoter. In other words, what it does is it lowers the effect this bad cholesterol has. So, then obviously the first thing, when you do something, what people do is first thing they go is to check it out. Like, what are the side effects? So I'm going to go to WebMD and I'm going to look it up because that's what most people will do. That's what I would do, right? Like anybody would. And they talk about nicotinic acid capsules, extended release, uses, side effects, and of course more talking points because nobody's really giving you the chemistry on it. But I mean, if we were just to, your doctor gave you this niacin, so the first thing you do is you go home and you look it up, and what do you find? It says, if you have any of the following health problems, consult your doctor or pharmacist before using this medication. So they're calling niacin a medication, right? Because you're going way beyond the little vitamin by itself. So if you have very low blood pressure, alcohol use, history of bleeding problems such as low platelets, diabetes, gallbladder disease, glaucoma, gout, heart disease such as a recent heart attack, unstable angina, kidney disease, liver disease, increase in liver enzymes, untreated mineral imbalance, low phosphate levels, stomach, intestinal ulcers, or underactive thyroid, you better talk to your doctor before doing this. Okay, so right there you're going, oh, jeebies. And then what I want to bring to the table is another study that just came about in I think in April from the Cleveland Clinic. And this study talks about people with coronary artery disease. And I'll wait, Sammy, I'll let you switch to the study. Let me just read the slide and then we'll go to the study and read from the study. People with coronary artery disease, which is the basis of what this study is going to say, but I'm going to pull some of it out for you. Okay, you are on the study?
Yep.
Oh, how do I go there?
It's at the bottom.
Okay.
You click on the Google.
Okay.
You see at the bottom?
Okay, yeah.
Do you need
Great.
help?
Yep, no. I need help in many things, but I'm okay for this. All right. So we look at here, and this is by National Institute of Health, but it talks about, and I'll go through some of the highlighted areas here. Dr. Stanley Hazen at the Cleveland Clinic searched for products of metabolism that might contribute to cardiovascular risk. And the results appeared in Nature Medicine on February 19th, 2024. So obviously this is hot off the press. And he talks about how this niacin, and I have a slide to go over it. I want to read it from the study, and then I think I have a slide that kind of explains it more clearly, or I think it does. But sometimes when you read these studies, it's hard to put all these chemicals in perspective. But bottom line, they've identified two molecules, 2-PY and 4-PY. And both of these are produced when the body breaks down excess, and the word there is excess niacin. So they're referring to the high dosages of niacin in the range of 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams a day, which are the dosages that we need to lower those LDLs and increase those HDLs and reduce the lipo(a)s. So this study is saying that that they found that niacin, unlike some of the other drugs, they might have a very good effect at lowering cholesterols. They did not lower the risk of heart attack or strokes. And researchers really weren't understanding why. Because, my God, if we're lowering those LDLs, like I said, I have patients that have low cholesterols and they're having heart attacks, right? So we can't just base it on I'm on a statin, go home, you'll be fine, because that's not the truth. Because everybody's on a statin over 60, guys. I hate to break the news. And heart attacks are number one killers in this country. So if statins were really that great, we wouldn't have the statistics we have. Okay, so let's just end the conversation there. So I think that that's sort of a false positive for a lot of people. So anyways, they talk about the levels of this 2-PY and the 4-PY. Now remember, these are molecules that are just sort of byproducts when the body's trying to break down all this excess niacin. And it's associated with another gene, don't you love these genes, that's the ACMSD. That's a big one. But it's associated with that gene. So you've got these two byproducts, right? And by the way, this is how biochemistry works. You gotta, it's kind of like a domino effect. You gotta go, like a lot of times when people look at something that's happening down here at this corner, you have to keep following it up and following it up and following it up to get to the root cause. You can't just look at the symptom and go, okay, I got it. You gotta keep following that pathology. So we're kind of following this pathology. Think of it in your head. You have excess niacin. Now you have the body trying to break this niacin down because it's excess. And it's coming up with two molecules, 2-PY, 4-PY. So get that image in your head. And those two are associated with another gene called ACMSD. And the team found that when you have the levels of another protein called VCAM1 were associated with this gene ACMSD. So when you see VCAM, and this is where science can get a little hairy, you know that it had to do with the gene ACMSD, and if we run it one layer back, we knew that it was triggered from 2-PY, 4-PY, and if you go one layer back, what caused that was excess niacin being broken down. So why do I mention it? Because a lot of people would see VCAM, and they go, oh, we're going to look down at VCAM. Okay, folks, that's good, but what's the pathology? Take it up the line. So VCAM, which, by the way, is associated from the gene that happened because of the byproducts of the niacin, is known to help with white blood cells stick to the walls of blood vessels, is part of the inflammatory process. This contributes to the formation of plaque in arteries. So they injected the mice with the 4-PY. And they increased the amount of the VCAM, because remember, it's that linear pathway. And they increased the amount of VCAM on the walls of blood vessels and the number of stuck white blood cells that happened because of that. So these findings suggest that excess niacin may be a risk factor for cardiovascular disease when excess niacin is broken down into 4-PY. This breakdown product activates an inflammatory pathway. Because remember, if you're going to talk science, you better be talking pathology, that are known to promote plaque formation in arteries. And this may increase the risk of any major cardiac events, which are talking about heart attacks or strokes. Niacin's effects have been always somewhat of a paradox, Hazen says. Despite niacin's lowering cholesterol, the clinical benefits have always been less than anticipated based on the degree of LDL cholesterol reduction. This led to the idea that excess niacin caused unclear adverse effects that partially counteract the benefits of LDL lowering. So, Samantha, take me back to the PowerPoint. I think we're done with that. I wanted to, I think it's important to read recent studies, but, whenever you give somebody a drug, okay, and let's really be clear on this. It's about when a doctor makes that decision, he knows there's side effects, folks. We know that. The key is, are the benefits better than the side effects? And with niacin and the breakdown of niacin, in this slide, I think I visually give it to you better. And if you're listening and you don't see my slide, great. I'll go back through it. You got niacin breakdown, you got the 2-PY, 4-PY, and the 2-PY, 4-PY leads to a gene variant called ACMSD to raise its head, and that then triggers, because they go together, VCAM, which is known to help white blood cells stick to the walls of blood vessels as part of the inflammatory process. So VCAM contributes to an inflammatory response. This contributes to the formation of plaque in arteries, because whenever you have that inflammation from immune cells in the artery, that is heart disease. Heart disease is an inflammation disease. How does it happen? Immune cells in the artery wall trigger this. Well, immune cells are only called when something is calling them. So VCAM is the white blood cells, part of this immune cells, that is partly responsible for this inflammatory response. So in all fairness, I may not have all the pathology of this. They've given me a piece of it, and I'm running with it. But a lot of times in science, you have to see the whole picture. So in all fairness, I am waiting on some studies with some doctors that say this isn't true. There's other studies that show that this isn't the case. And I'm open-ended here, okay? Because I'm not attached to any ideology. I'm okay with saying I was wrong because I only go on the paths I see and the research I see, right? So I'm not going to just, look, if I just depended on studies, there's a million studies that keto is the best thing ever. There's a million studies that two different dichotomies, two different opinions, and you can find research for both. So you can't do that. It's not a valid way of reasoning anything. You got to come from some type of path. So I want to talk about possibly next week, if you're interested, you can tell me if you're interested. I want to go back to niacin, not as a therapy. I want to say, hey, what is amazing about vitamin B3? And it does a lot with the DNA. It does stuff with the mitochondria. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. And it is very instrumental in a set of proteins called sirtuins. And boy, oh boy, do these have the anti-age and people clicking their heels. Because sirtuins are these proteins, there are 7 of them, and we've got sirtuin 1 and 6 and 7 in the DNA, and it actually needs niacin to do its job. And to me, that's the link here, is that niacin cannot, or sirtuins, I should say, cannot function without niacin. And that's super interesting. So these proteins are magnificent in what they do. And niacin is truly an amazing compound when it comes to the mitochondria. Now, the mitochondria is a powerhouse of the cell. And everybody says, well, you have mitochondrial dysfunction. That's like a key thing now out there. And I'm like, can you show me the pathology of that? Of course, nobody can. They're doing talking points. But these components, these, I should say, proteins, and all these little enzymes that go on in the DNA and the cytoplasm, means in the gut of a cell, and in the powerhouse of the cell that controls really your metabolism and so many sideline jobs, all need niacin. And that's where somebody came to me and they said, oh, I am taking NAD and it's great for the mitochondria. Well, yeah, some of the other forms of niacin do attach to other areas, and one is the mitochondria, and it is pretty amazing how niacin plays a role there. And niacin deficiency, let's talk about that, because when we're talking about vitamins being in their therapeutic level, let's talk about their deficiency level. Guys, yeah, that can be a problem. So for me, it's not so much about, oh, and I'll come back to the sirtuins because I'm bringing up another study here. It's not so much about people thinking I'm going to take mega doses of all these vitamins and it's going to make me healthier. At a certain point, a megadose is just meaning your body's got to clean the excess. And I just explained to you how an excess can create other compounds. It can create other domino effect, can cause other issues. So I am not a dietitian, okay, and I don't think any registered dietitian that has a solid background or degree in it is going to be recommending megadoses of anything. Not unless there's a therapy reason, and yeah, then we would talk about pathology of that. But ideally, we want to get enough of these compounds to allow it to do what it was designed to do. And then if a doctor wants to use some of these supplements as a therapeutic agent, then there's some good basis for that, I suppose. But I think we need to start asking the question, how is that path working? Where does it go? Not just ask for talking points, like show me what it does, right? So when I look at these sirtuins, and remember that I said that they are absolutely critically bound to getting enough niacin. This study talks about sirtuins that regulate biological and cellular processes, for instance, mitochondrial biogenesis, lipid and fatty acid oxidation, oxidative stress, gene transcriptional activity, that means it's going into the DNA, apoptosis, it's cell death, inflammatory responses, DNA repair. It's literally autophagy, which is what they're talking about with all this aging, anti-aging. So they're really talking about this important function niacin plays in response to this sirtuin protein. So this to me is, it's super important. And in this study, it talks about vitamin B3 and sirtuin function. And this study says sirtuins are NAD, which is a form of niacin-dependent protein deacetylases. N-acetylases is an enzyme that does a lot of magical things in the DNA, but the point I'm trying to make here is they don't do anything without niacin. So it's an important vitamin. And I'm not going to go into all of that because I think that's a whole nother live stream. But niacin, the amount we need is 18 milligrams per the day. And, if you're taking a multivitamin, it's got 30 milligrams. I don't have a problem with that. 50 milligrams. Okay, I just want to make sure I get enough. That to me is not a big deal. If you're taking it as a drug, you're really taking these extended dosages, then we got to look at the purpose for that. Plus, niacin is present in a lot of foods. Most plant-based foods are going to have anywhere from 2 to 5 milligrams of niacin per serving, and it's usually a half a cup as a typical serving. So if you had a cup of beans, you could literally have 5 milligrams of niacin. You have it with a half a cup of rice, and you're at 7 milligrams. That's almost half the day's worth right there. And niacin is present in a wide variety of foods. So if you're doing animal-based foods like poultry, fish, beef, you're going to get anywhere from 5 to 10 milligrams of niacin. And that's, again, going to be about an average of 3 to 4 ounces. So if you ate 4 ounces of fish, a cup of beans, and a half a cup of rice, you're probably going to get close to your day's worth. But maybe, just maybe, you don't eat healthy. You may not be getting enough, or maybe you have absorption issues. Maybe you need 30 milligrams. Maybe you need double that. That may not be unreasonable with age. Then you would have to eat 2 or 3 cups of beans, cup of rice, 6 ounces. So you can start to see that, all right, if I didn't eat healthy all the time, maybe I wouldn't get the amount of vitamins I need in a day. And that ought to be a bingo for you, because that's correct. If you pretty much eat your calories of really whole, healthy foods, you're probably going to get everything you need. Not everything. There's some things you're not, and we can talk about those. Yeah, definitely. I can do a list of those. But some of the things you're going to be okay with. But I always think it's good to take a multivitamin. And I know I've done some YouTubes on what to look for in a multivitamin. But what do I think about B3? I think that all the B vitamins are super important because it isn't just one vitamin. You cannot take B12 in its entirety until you take it with the complex, because you're not going to get the full effect of any of these B vitamins because they do work in synergy together. And that's one huge component. When it comes to vitamins, it's about the synergy. It's about not the mega dosing, but it's about getting it's almost better to get a little bit of everything than a lot of one or two things, okay? Because that in itself can create some domino effect down another rabbit hole that maybe I don't even know about. I'd have to go research it. But taking vitamins and knowing what you're taking to me is huge, okay? Because I cannot tell you how many people buy into the next marketing gig. They don't ask the important questions. They just take whatever they're taking based on some talking point. Even doctors do talking points. So I think it's important to look at some of these vitamins. I don't mind going through some of these. This is why I do this, to educate you. Definitely vitamins are in my wheelhouse, right? So the gist of it is that it's about moderation versus about megadosing. Unless you really want to talk about I know a lot of people megadose on biotin, right? Because they want their hair to grow. Like, has anybody understood the pathology of biotin? Like, has anybody ever really broke it down? Maybe that's just a bunch of BS. Because maybe it doesn't go way you think it's supposed to go. When I look at really making an impact on somebody's life through nutrition, it really comes down to some basics. And the basics are this. You got to get the macronutrients right, which is why I do a course. If you go to my website, you can sign up for it. And I do a live stream that I only deal with members about that, because I think this is super important. If it's really coming down to one thing, to me it's about getting the macronutrients right, because if you get those right, a lot of the other stuff will fall into place. And then understanding why you need to get them right. Again, if I just said, oh, eat a certain amount of protein, fiber, and carbs, and trust me, like, really, hopefully people that are tuning into me know that I don't even respect that, right? So I would not want that from me to you. So I always say the reason why I want you to eat these macronutrients and these ratios I'm telling you is for 4 reasons. How it affects your muscle tissue, your insulin, your gut bacteria, your brain chemicals. Those are the 4 that I've identified as the biggies, because they trigger an entire appetite mayhem. And why is Ozempic so huge? Do you think it's because people are getting healthier on it? No. It's because it turns off your appetite. If you want somebody to get to their ideal body weight, turn off their doggone appetite. That's it. And you can do that naturally. If you watch some of my YouTube videos, I talk about these GLPs, these glucagon-like peptides are shooting up for $2,000 a month. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And all they are proteins, peptides. Why they have to shoot them? Because if you actually ate them, the gut would just totally eat up all those proteins. It wouldn't go where it was supposed to. But that's how simple it is. And what do? They do what certain foods will do. They go up to the brain and they turn the appetite down. That's it. That's it. But you're getting side effects off that because it's an analog. It's made in a laboratory. So I want to be respectful of time. And, I was really thinking, oh my gosh, I want to get these shorter, right? Like, do you guys want them shorter? Is an hour good? Some people say, can I get it in 30 minutes? I'm going to try harder to do that, to try to get the information to you more condensed. But let's go to the questions. If I have any, I'm looking at the chat.
Just remind people like the screen.
Okay.
You can read off of there.
Okay, here we go. Because I don't do IT well, right? Thank you, everyone. Subscribe. We want to reach our 200 subscribers.
No, we did.
Oh, we did. We reached it. Yay. All right. There you go. You can see I'm not really looking at that, but I'm glad other people are, right?
We should get 200 more.
But we need 200 more. There we go. We need to spread the word. Don't forget to like the stream. Well, why wouldn't you like the stream? Of course. And hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. You should have already done that, okay? And help us grow our channel. Right, because we need to help people. We need to get them off this scam thing going. Oh, I had one more.
No, it was just
Okay,
about
great.
the technical difficulty.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. We're getting better at it. Okay. So I don't see anything else. Nobody wants to know anything else about this. So,
I think it's going to take a minute to digest all the information.
okay. Got to digest it. Oh, yeah. I like that. Digestion and absorb it. Okay. Good. Good. All right. So I think we're good.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Love comments. Let me know. I'm here for you.